Segment 2, Gold and Black Live, Rosevelt, Colvin. And I like that display back there. That is dang impressive. It's the group, it's the den of defensive ends. It's
you're talking over there.
No, I'm talking behind you. The fact
you got is that Ray Edwards?
Ray Edwards, point to him. Keena Turner.
Got your guy Drew Brees there. Indy guy Reggie Wayne.
Oh yeah.
Let's just turn it so you can see it. Who is that? Is that Nikovich?
Yeah, 95. That would be.
Yeah.
That's Sean. What?
No, 95 is Sean Phillips.
Yeah.
Then you have Aiken. That's right there.
51.
This guy right here is my best friend, Dewan Alfonso. He went to Indiana State, originally from Indianapolis. He's like the greatest of all time Jack linebackers in arena football. So that's his jersey. And then that number 95 is Paul Spicer. He's another Indianapolis IPS alum and played for the Jaguars for a while. And not the Jaguars, but for the Jaguars, yeah. But he's coaching now. And I got another wall here with Patriot stuff. But, I'm blessed, man, to have an opportunity to live in a home that has a nice basement.
Yeah, and that is a cool thing because the den of defensive ends, and you were the one that really started that conversation back up back in your days, your 96 to 90, well, 95 to 98, but you certainly started 97 and 98, especially under Joe Tiller. And the interesting thing about the den of defensive ends, you got you're not going to find a more quality person than Aiken Adele. You're not going to find a better quality person than Rosevelt Colvin. I don't know Sean Phillips well, though he's a pleasant guy and a great guy for everything I know. But it's a fraternity of high-class individuals as well. And that's got, even as you get older, that's got to be an important thing.
It is. I think, being able to be at Purdue when I was there, to see the footage and film of guys like Keena and know what they had did before us. And it was just almost a blessing in disguise that Coach Tiller came in and added a guy like Randy Melvin, which was our defensive ends coach. Coach Emmanuel was a D-line coach, a D-tackles coach. And it was just a different style of football that they allowed us to play. For me, it was a rebirth because I was a undersized, defensive end trying to hold off, 375-pound Orlando Pace. Yeah. And they said, hey, man, just get off the ball and go make plays. And I was very fortunate that that was my game. Mentally, I was able to tap in and I'd say get a good jump on the snap count, read my keys, watch film to understand when and where to take a guess, and it worked out well, man. I think once I had the opportunity to be successful in it. You look at Chucky was alongside with me, then Chike his senior year or our senior year together. You had some guys in the interior like David Nugent and Mitch Rion. And then you follow that up with, as I'm leaving out, my last year, a kid like Sean Phillips comes in the locker room and literally tells me, I'm going to break all your records. And I'm like, dude, who are you? And he goes on to do really, really well at Purdue as well as in the NFL. Aiken was there as well during that time. There was sort of that combo group. And then what you do is you sort of start to watch and repeat. And Coach Melvin and Coach E-Man were a huge part of giving us that rebirth, as you mentioned, and bringing the name forward to that. I joke with a guy. I played with a guy in Chicago named Alex Brown, great defensive end from Florida, and I tell him all the time, like, it's just you and Javon Curse that came out of Florida. We have more defensive ends that have come out of Purdue in the last 15, 20 years, and so it's a pride thing, and definitely honored to be a part of the process.
You look at guys and you can evaluate them because you live the part and you know the part. But all right, tell me what Sean Phillips and Ray Edwards and Aiken Adele. Now, Aiken was more of a linebacker, I think, in the league. And you saw Keena on film, and maybe I saw more of Keena than you did because I was more his age. But, you had some similarities. But break the differences. What were the subtle differences? Ray Edwards maybe was bigger, I'm thinking, but break those guys down, and maybe even Ninkovich in there, throw him in there as well. Yeah.
So if you look at, I'll start with Sean and Aiken. They were more my body type and prototype with Chike, where we were a little bit linkier, 225 to 240, 250 at the most. Really quick, explosive, could dip around the corner and just, wreak havoc in the backfield. Ray was a thicker body, and he still possessed the opportunity or the skills to be a pass rusher like we were. I think he utilized more strength than what I would have or what Aiken would have. And then you talk about, like you said, a guy like Rob, who was more of a defensive tackle hybrid kind of guy where he shifted out. And Rob didn't shift into a true defensive end outside linebacker role until he got to the NFL, like myself, but he was a little bit thicker body. I remember seeing Rob after he had, I think he got drafted by the Saints, correct? And
right, he did.
He came back to campus. And I, not to say he was struggling, he came out to campus in sort of a gray area of not really knowing how his career was going to go. And, here comes Bill. He's always got to have a Patriot guy on his roster, and it's always worked out for him. And I think it was a great situation for Rob. You adding guys like Cliff Averill. Cliff is more in the mold of myself, 250, 240 pounds, a quick, fast guy. But then you add in, Cliff was there at the beginning of Ryan's sort of tenure.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember coming back to campus and watching film with those guys. And I told Ryan, I was like, man, you do the same move every single time and you're late off the ball. And that was the one thing that Coach Melvin always used to tell us, you got to get off the ball. If you don't get off the ball, then it doesn't matter what move you got, you're going to be late to the quarterback. And so just being able to pour into those guys and say a few things to them. I never forget communicating with Cliff, walking off the football field at the spring game and telling him, man, you're the next guy up. Go make some plays and make us proud. And I distinctly remember talking to him or texting him the night before the Super Bowl. I gave him a few tips. I hate to tell people, in the Indiana area, I gave him a few tips about Peyton Manning. And I told him, man, if you do these things, man, you'll be disruptive and you make some plays. And they went on and won the Super Bowl. So it's definitely a brotherhood, and we want to continue the tradition. George has done a great job of sort of holding the fort, so to speak. There's been a couple of the guys that have had opportunities to play and make some plays. And so I'm hoping that a lot of kids around the country that are high-level defensive ends will choose Purdue because of that nostalgia, and hopefully continue the tradition.
All right, give me a scouting report. We're going off script, but you've done a good job of bringing up some interesting topics. George Karlaftis, a freak athlete. And I'm in no position to evaluate, but what do you see? And what do you see for him in the next level? He's going to probably be a top 15 guy. It sounds like we'll see how that all plays out. But how do you see that? He's a guy that still seems like he's yet to reach his peak. And yet he's really a hardworking, got a great work ethic. You think he's going to continue to develop?
Yeah, I think George came in with a lot of hype, obviously being the quote unquote next den of defensive end member. And I think he did a really great job his freshman year. I think sort of got derailed a little bit with a couple of injuries, things that, kind of held him out of games. COVID hit, that situation kind of, held things back. And then this year is sort of the bounce back, and I'm back on the scene. The things I saw out of him were he was always around the ball or the quarterback and disrupting and making plays. He reminded me a lot of Ryan Kerrigan. I said it when I first saw him. I said, man, this kid, not that, he's not as good or not as good, but I think from a body type, from a physicality standpoint, the way he played the game was very similar. Ryan was a real passionate, guy when he made plays. George does a lot of the similar things. I think their body, I'd say muscle mass looks very similar. I've only been next to George maybe 2 or 3 times, but I've been back on campus. Ryan the same way, but from my memory, they fit the same mold in the Rob Ninkovich mold. A thicker body, defensive end. I think when he gets to the NFL, I think he can expect to be a defensive end, and I don't expect for a team to draft him to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. Can he do that? He probably can. But at the end of the day, I think he's better suited moving forward, I'd say 70 to 80% of the time, and giving a team that edge pressure. I think he plays the run decent enough. I think as his body heals and he gets to the point where he's closer to 100%, which is what he should become a training camp for the NFL. the way the rules are nowadays, most of these guys can play 15 years, in a blink of an eye, just because there's less contact. And I think that helps the guys from a longevity standpoint. So he's a high motor guy. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to benefit from a team allowing him to line up in a 4-3 front at a defensive end. And he has to get to a point where he has a significant move that he can count on third down and be able to play the run and hold the edge enough that, a team will allow him to play first and second down.
Why is it all you guys, and you mentioned every one of these people, and George, I don't know, I know George a little bit, obviously, you've been around him, but you're all nice guys and relatively soft-spoken, respectful people, but you're mean football players. That's the nature of the game, I guess, but you got to turn that switch and you got to bring that. And I've noticed that about George, and certainly that was your MO, is that, I'm doing this every play. Is that a switch you turn on, or is that's just it when the helmet's on and the game lights are on?
I think every, well, I'd say, I won't say every, but I'd say most human beings have a competitive spirit in them. Yeah. I think some are more blessed than others when it comes to physicality and girth. Yeah. And so being that if you have both of those, you become a immediate candidate to be a football player. Yeah. And so, the dynamics of who you are off the field versus who you are in the middle of a play when it's 3rd and 7 and you got, hundreds of thousands of people in an NFL stadium or a college stadium cheering or preparing to cheer just based on the thing that you may do in the next 3 seconds. You have to have that ability to flip a switch. Because if you're over there thinking about what you're going to snack on or, some chili, then, you're probably going to be rotated out and be on the bench. And so I think the guys that can, I'd say, manage those emotions, that can prepare themselves in a way and amp themselves up at certain moments, either pregame and hold that throughout the entire game or every time they step on the field, are unique. And I think Purdue's been fortunate, but I think every football player has that mentality. I think I would say every athlete, if you're not a competitor, then you aren't prepared to play at the highest level of competition when you step out there, then your career is going to end sooner rather than later. And so I think, he displays that demeanor, but I think as a defensive lineman, you have to have a unique thought process because offensive linemen are dirty and they hold and they do things that they shouldn't do. That
They're subversive.
Yeah. So, guys like Matt Light, Brandon Gorn, all those guys, the list goes on and on, but you got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah, Mitrione should have played offensive line because he fit the mode on that.
Yeah, now Meek is Meek could have definitely done both. But I'm very fortunate to have a couple years with Mitrione as well.
Every player, now Sean Phillips came to Purdue as a tight end. Mm-hmm. You obviously played offense. Did you in high school? I would assume. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did you? And my memory's fading here. Did you come here as a tight end also, and they could move you or not? Okay.
I can't.
Did you play offense, and did you want to play offense?
Yeah, I played tight end in high school.
Okay.
I was actually the crazy thing is I got voted all-state tight end and didn't get voted all-state defensive end or linebacker. I played linebacker my senior year. My freshman through junior year at Broad Ripple, I played defensive end, and then my senior year, we lost a bunch of seniors the previous year. And so coach said, hey, man, I need you to move to linebacker. Knew nothing, right? Zero. Yeah. All he said to me was, just go find the ball. I said, well, what if it's a pass? He said, just back up 10 yards and stand there and then go find the ball again. They were yelling stuff behind me. Like I know what it is now, but they were yelling cloud and two sky. And I'm like, man, what are you guys talking about? Like, that's not the play call. And so rest his soul, Coach Ricker, my head coach at Broad Ripple High School, there was never really any instruction how to play the linebacker position other than just stand there and go get the ball. When I got to Purdue, I was a linebacker, and I was in the linebacker room with Ty Smith, Noble Jones, was Willie Fells. That was our linebacker class. So I came in as a linebacker and literally knew nothing. They moved me to Sam linebacker, which is typically the slow linebacker. the guy that can't cover. So they moved me to Sam. I'm out there lost in spring practices. You know, Coach Smith is yelling at me, screaming at me, running up and pushing me and kicking me over. Sam out, you know, it's just stupid stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I don't even know what you guys want me to do. Yeah. So after my sophomore year, after my freshman year, Coach Smith came to me and said, hey, would you rather be a slow linebacker or a fast defensive end? I said, I'd rather be a fast defensive end. And so I went back to the position I was at Broad Ripple originally. That second year, you know, was the, you know, year, I think that was Chike's year last year before he went on a hiatus. Joe Hayes was there, right. D. Brown, Jamel. I mean, we had some studs on defense. Yeah. Coach Colletta's last year, I believe. Yep. Then the next year was when Coach Tiller came in, and, you know, I had switched. So I made the full switch. And actually people ask me all the time, about, you know, that transition. I didn't hate the transition, but I kicked myself because I was set to play on the basketball team that spring and going into that my junior year. Like I had already talked to Coach Katie. I talked to Coach Coletto had signed off on everything was fine. And Coach Tiller came in and said, no. And I'm like, dude, I was getting ready to go play on the basketball team. But he said I couldn't do it because he didn't want me to miss the training, because he said, if you're going to play defensive end in the Big Ten, we need you to get away from this 225-pound frame you got and put a little weight on. So I had to stay in the spring game.
I know that you'd have been a fine addition to Brad Miller and Chad Austin.
Yeah, there we go.
And Brian Cardinal's early days, mm-hmm. you'd have fit right in with them. I know that. All right, you have plenty of fame as your Purdue legend and your NFL legend, but you're also the famous father of one current student athlete in volleyball, and one that's coming. Tell me just a little bit about, Raven. She's now, I think, a rising junior. Is that right?
Yep.
A rising
sophomore.
Rising sophomore. And she is going to be competing this weekend for a spring match for Purdue volleyball. And, of course, son Miles will be a rising senior and will be at Purdue in another year. But tell me what's alike about those two in terms of their competitive nature, and what's not alike. I mean, you know, I have two kids, they're different sometimes, but what makes them really elite level athletes? Outside of their dad, of course.
Yeah,
and their mom.
That was the first thing I was going to say. I try to make sure everybody knows, Tiff tries to claim that she's the reason why they're. And everybody knows that's not true, but, Raven is a lot more like me from when it comes to her demeanor and her competitive nature and what she does on the court and in matches. Miles is more like his mom, really reserved, quiet. Now he'll get sort of amped up depending on the situation, but at the end of the day, it's been a very humbling and honorable situation and experience for me to have I have 4 kids, so my older kids competed as well, but for Raven and Miles to be able to achieve what they're doing right now has been very, very humbling for me. And I say that because, Miles is living my dream, right? I wanted to be an NBA basketball, right? I wanted to play Purdue basketball. And I'm not mad that I didn't, that I went to Purdue and played Purdue football, but I always had a dream. And I love basketball. I just love it with a passion. Raven, is almost my spitting image when it comes to how she carries herself and her thought process on life and things like that. And to see her go out and dominate, matches, not just what she did, this year as a freshman in the Big Ten against 24, 25, 26-year-old, women. But what she's done, her entire career, and I credit, there's a guy named Travis Fuller, used to work at Purdue on the volleyball team, runs the Academy Volleyball Club now. He picked Raven after she had, wanted to hang out with her friends. That's why Raven was on the way to being a budding track star. Literally didn't lose a race in 7th grade. And she said, I want to go play volleyball and hang out with my friends. I said, do you understand what you're doing? Like you're throwing away an opportunity to go somewhere for free for college because you want to hang out with your friends. And Travis, ended up saying, man, Raven's got some talent, yada, yada, yada. And she's raw. And then she just started levitating. Like literally parents would send us, screenshots of Raven jumping and her teammate jumping and them coming down and Raven still going up. And so at that time, Miles was still young. He was still a chunky, 6th, 7th grader that would whine and, wouldn't listen to me. And I said to myself, if he's ever going to try to accomplish anything athletically, I'm going to have to teach him. Right. Raven is, I knew nothing about volleyball. I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. So I would just creep around the backside and ask people questions so I can help her with just basic advice. Yeah. But for Miles, he was playing football and basketball, things like that. So I could help him. But man, he started to be good at basketball. And one day, Brandon Brantley called me and said, "Hey man, we want to bring Miles up to the elite camp." Yeah. And this was in 8th grade. I said, "Brandon, he's only 13, right?" He's like, "Yeah, that's fine. We just want to see how he, interacts with the group." Miles goes out there. I mean, he's a chunky kid. They don't even pay attention to him. I mean, literally, they say, "Hey man, good job," and shoo him away, give him his T-shirt, and he leaves. It's been very, very humbling, as I said. I think the school protects those legacy scholarships and it does not take them lightly. And there is a pressure that I try to help them understand. Yeah. That they need to be performing at a high level because people are watching. Yeah. I tell them both the story that every time I used to compete in the NFL, I used to compete not just for the name that was on the back of my jersey, but because I knew everyone was watching me. I knew my 3rd grade teacher was watching me. I knew the counselor from Broad Ripple was watching me. My mom was flipping off the couch. I knew that everybody in Indianapolis, if the Patriots ever came to Indianapolis or played the Colts, I knew I had to have the best game of my life because everybody was watching. And so for them, I tell them all the time, be inspirational. And to see, Dave and the volleyball team and Raven came back to Indianapolis and did a spring match against Ball State. They hung a banner of Raven up in the place because she was an All-American. For her to walk into that, and then after that, for all the academy volleyball girls that are younger than her to stand in a line and ask for autographs, to see kids when Miles we played Eastern Hancock this year, and they literally had to cut off the autograph line to keep kids from coming up and asking for his autograph. To see that is a humbling experience, and I try to help them understand how responsible they have to be actions, and for them to be connected to is a tremendous honor. And I really appreciate Dave extending the scholarship offer to Raven, and I'm obviously it's working out right now, so that's a good thing. I really, really appreciate Matt when we came up from, I hate this, just to continue to run off a topic, but we came up on an official visit, and we sat down in the office with Paint and all the coaches. And Paint told Miles, he said, "Hey man, your dad has never invited me to his house. I've never invited your dad to my house. So I don't owe you anything, and he doesn't owe me anything, but we're going to offer you a scholarship." And at that moment, I said to myself, man, this is a significant situation, because I don't know of any other family that's had, I don't know of a dad that's had 2 student athletes that have come to to a university, to Purdue, to play volleyball, basketball, or a significant sport. I don't know of another family that's had 3. I mean, we probably, well, I'll take that back. The Anthrops, I think they had. They have 7 or 10 or 11.
I think they may still have more. I don't know. Yeah, who knows?
But I told them, I said, this is a unique honor, a unique situation, and we don't take it lightly. So I'm tickled, man. I'm tickled to death. I pray every day for their health, their well. Used to finish up her first semester. She's enjoyed it. She's living the college life. I have to ask her to call me. I have to talk to her a lot. Miles, we tell him all the time, "Hey man, it's a countdown. There's a year, you got a year left, and you will literally be on campus as a 17-year-old college student." And for me, it's sad at the same, so it's bittersweet, but I'm enjoying it because my flourishing. And so I'm forever grateful, to Purdue University for this opportunity. And I pray that, Miles continues to prepare himself so that when he gets his opportunity to get on campus, he knocks it out of the park just like Raven did.
Yeah, well, I think one thing, it's a common thread, and you said it because I was going to ask you, is the two head coaches and the staffs they work for, they put those kids, not to gush, but they put them in the right position and have expectations. And that everything you hear about Matt Painter is kind of a similar thing. He doesn't promise anything necessarily. You don't, everybody kind of starts out the same. We know that Miles is wonderfully talented, and Raven's already shown that at the intercollegiate level, but they'll have to earn it also. And you wouldn't have it any other way, I don't think. Would you?
Not. Definitely would not. Definitely would not.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, I so appreciate your time today. It's always good. We could go on for a couple hours on this, but we'll see you around Mackey Arena and Beelan Court, I'm sure. And in addition to other things, you're going to be busy this weekend, so you may not be able to see tomorrow's spring game, but there's some exciting things going on with Purdue football too. That you got to be excited as an alum. The way the Boilermakers showed out last year, won that bowl game, and there's momentum going into this season.
Yeah, I definitely am excited. I think everyone is looking for a stellar year. Great opportunity for the football team to win the division and potentially have an opportunity to get to the Big Ten championship game. Anytime you can have a veteran signal caller, it's very significant. I think with Aiden coming back, that ultimately gave Coach Brom a weapon that he could have never thought that he was going to have. And I think the maturity of that young man, the opportunity of guys, even though I know we lost a significant amount of production with David Bell, but I think the maturity of him will help those young guys that are coming along. And they, got to continue to try to find that next George Kalafis, that next, Ryan Kerrigan, that next kid that's going to be in the den. And we're excited. I think, alumni, player-wise, the guys that are former players are excited about the opportunity to watch those guys. Unfortunately, like you said, I won't be able to make it up there because Miles does have a couple games on Saturday. But from afar, I'll be wishing them well. And at the end of the day, my hopes and prayers are that they come out of it successful, healthy, number one, and then with a sense of who they are, so that when they hit the ground running in a couple months, man, Purdue football is really back on the map.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time. We will again look forward to talking to you down the road. We always do. We also will be back for segment 3. Jerry Seasting will join us, another guy that made it big in professional sports as well. We're going to be paying tribute to Lee Rose, who was his college coach at the end of his time. Lee passed away at the age of 85, and Jerry's was a fine basketball player and played for the Pacers and the Celtics and won an NBA championship. So we'll look forward to that too. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned on Gold and Black Live.